What's going on, guys, and welcome to episode 333 of hashtag AskGSM, here today for Wednesday, April 15th, 2020. I am Graham GSM Matthews. Hope you guys are doing well, aka Tax Day, which I don't think it's Tax Day technically. I think they pushed it back with the whole, obviously, the outbreak of the coronavirus and everything else. But if it is Tax Day, IRS's favorite day of the year. But I'm first of all, I'm late in recording the show. I was supposed to record it a couple hours ago. I was going to do it outside, had some background issues, whatever, background audio issues. There was someone building a house across the street. But I'm actually glad I waited, because literally as I was just about to hit the record button, I went on WWE.com because it's my homepage, of course. And the first thing I see is Drake Maverick and Kurt Hawkins, among other superstars, released, or whatever the headline was. And I'm like, I did not see. I mean, part of me kind of saw that coming, because I was going to discuss, I recorded the first 5 minutes of the show a few hours ago before the audio got messed up and I just restarted. Thankfully, it was only 5 minutes and not like 50 minutes. And I'll get to the questions here about, dwindling down and the whole essential business bullshit, all that other stuff in a second. But it came out at noon today. I guess there was a phone call among WWE personnel saying that they would be scaling down, because obviously because of the current climate and everything else, this is happening to every business. I mean, no one is exempt. No one is, everyone is being affected by this. If you're not being affected, then I'm not even sure, how you're even on this earth, because everyone is being affected by this in some form or fashion. WWE is obviously no exception here. And a bunch of superstars were released. I mean, I think we all kind of saw that coming at some point, because again, the edict, I don't know if it's the right word, but like the memo that went out apparently around noon today in a conference call among the WWE employees was that they would be scaling back in every department. And I'm sure that would include superstar releases. Just, I didn't figure it would be this soon. It was literally within an hour or two of that news breaking that we found out that multiple superstars would be getting their releases. So before we go any further with anything else, and the list may continue to grow, I'll refresh it as we go along here at the end of the episode, whatever, because this is what the list currently looks like of superstars that were released today by WWE. It includes Drake Maverick, who the timing is very surprising, and I'll probably go into more in-depth about these releases tomorrow on Wrestle Rant Radio, which we're also airing the timing that I put up the interview today couldn't be worse, because all the focus is on this, all the releases talk and whatnot. But my interview with Jim Ross did go up today on Bleacher Report, the transcription, the written version. You can check out the audio version tomorrow on Wrestle Rant Radio in full. So look forward to that. It's a great, candid conversation. So before we get to that tomorrow, I will go more in depth with each of these releases. We haven't seen anything like this in WWE in about 5 or 6 years, I would say. There was one Thursday or Friday like 6 years ago where they released Teddy Long. Or no, it wasn't. Well, yeah, 2014, but it happened again in 2016. In 2014, it was like Jinder Mahal, Drew McIntyre, who both ended up coming back. Kurt Hawkins, who was also released today too. He got cut that day. Teddy Long, I think, was another one. And a bunch of other people. Brodus Clay. It was like 8 to 10 people. Evan Bourne, I think, was another one. They did it again in 2016. I don't think we've had a mass round of releases since then, because they like to hoard talent. In 2016, I think they got rid of Hornswoggle, Zeb Coulter, Wade Barrett, but that one was already kind of official before that. Alex Riley, I remember being another one. I think Cameron was another one. Damian Sandow was another one. None of them, I mean, for the most part, a lot of these releases aren't surprising. It's really trimming the fat. And I hate to say it, people are losing their jobs, and none of these people I want to see leave WWE. I'm very happy with a lot of these people being where they are. But a lot of, there's no Randy Orton on this list. There's no top-tier talents. Some surprising names, though. So I'll run through the list of names real quick. But by this point, I'm sure you've already heard. We have Drake Maverick, Kurt Hawkins, who actually, again, like I said, got cut a couple of years ago, back in 2014 or so. Carl Anderson, Luke Gallows, so 2 members of the OC gone. And these are the same guys that re-signed for like a lot of money about a year ago. They probably realized, hey, we can't pay these people what they're worth, or we don't see their worth, whatever. Because they did it initially, I'm sure, to keep them away from AEW. But at this point, like, they let go of the Revival a week ago. That was obviously an isolated incident, if you can even really call it that. That's been in the works now for a long time. Those people, the Revival, Dawson, Wilder, they requested their releases a year ago. That was really a long time coming, so I'm not really surprised that was separate. These people, it doesn't really sound like it was their choice. They were just, called and released today. Maverick, Kurt Hawkins, Anderson Gallows, Heath Slater, Eric Young, EC3 and Lio Rush. That's the current list, and I heard or read somewhere, I guess, that Shane Hurricane Helms was actually released as well. He's been working as a backstage producer, as an agent for WWE in recent years. That has yet to be confirmed. Let me just put it that way. It's probably confirmed by the time you listen to this. But he did put out a statement on his Twitter saying, I knew I shouldn't have accepted that call today. Like the whole JTG tweet, from 6 years ago when he finally got fired after dodging those releases for so long. He's like, damn, I shouldn't have picked up my phone, blah, 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 which was funny. But it was kind of like that tweet, and then he was replying to people. People were like, I hope you land on your feet, blah, 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 and he was saying thank you. So I assume he was probably let go as well, which is a shame because I think they brought him in about a year or two ago, probably after he came back to the company in 2018 to the Royal Rumble. But anyway, a lot of these aren't too surprising. Maverick, a little bit, just because he was recently announced for the interim NXT Cruiserweight Championship tournament, so that's not happening. They're supposed to be taping that tonight, so clearly that's not happening. They're replacing him with someone else. Lio Rush wasn't a part of the tournament. He has not been on TV in several weeks. He was the NXT Cruiserweight Champion about a year ago. Not a year ago, like 6 months ago, actually. Lost it to Angel Garza. And he's always had heat from the company about a year ago when he was with Bobby Lashley. And they've been, he's been hinting at being put back with Bobby, and Renee Young was like, I would love to see Lio Rush back with Bobby, and obviously that's not happening now. So he was let go. He's been going in and out of the company for a while, so not too surprising. I feel like that was more a matter of when and not if. Slater, not surprising. Eric Young, not surprising. Slater has not been on TV in a long time. I feel like Slater is one of those people that probably requested their release a while ago. And hey, Jinder Mahal and Drew McIntyre were both fired 6 years ago, and they came back to become WWE champions. So who knows? Maybe the same will happen to Heath Slater. But in all seriousness, that sucks for him if it wasn't his choice. It doesn't sound like it was. Eric Young, another guy, I could go either way in Eric Young in the fact that I could believe that he either requested it and he was finally granted it, or he was just hanging on by a thread and they just released him because they had no use for him. Sanity I thought was a good faction. Once they split them up about a year ago, the writing was on the wall. The guy was on his way out at some point. They have done absolutely nothing with Eric Young in the last year. He's been on Main Event. He's been a staple on Main Event for years now. And I think the biggest blow to the WWE roster right now is what are they going to do to fill time in Main Event now? Currently, I guess they're using NXT people since they're at the PC, but the last year or two, they've been using Eric Young, they've been using Heath Slater, all these other people for the show, and no longer. And another Main Event staple that is no longer with the company is EC3. He was also released today. Again, not too surprising. I think he was hurt about 6 months ago, which is why we haven't seen him on TV recently. But why even bother fucking hiring the guy, They had no plans for him. They did an NXT, and he came up with some promise, and they kind of butchered his debut, and then he just went absolutely nowhere. Vince seemingly soured on him pretty quickly. So that sucks. Hopefully he can either go back to Impact or at some point, at this point, we can all speculate, where this person would end up would be better suited, whatever. At this point, it doesn't even matter. What company would want to hire anyone right now? The revival to AEW to me seems inevitable. But right now, every company seems to be scaling back in some form or fashion. These places are not made of money. Even the great Vince McMahon, a millionaire who wants to be a billionaire in the words of CM Punk, even he cannot afford to keep all these people under talent. Keep all these talents under contract right now in these times of uncertainty. So again, I'll go into more depth about all these releases and if there's any more by tomorrow. So I'll discuss that all tomorrow on Wrestle Rant Radio. Instead, let's get to your questions that were sent in yesterday by you fine folks on social media. Be sure to tweet me on the Twitter machine at WrestleRant with the hashtag AskGSM. You can also find me on Facebook at facebook.com/Graham.gsm.Matthews. Leave a comment on the post I usually put up on Tuesday nights, if not on the wall itself. And last but certainly not least, drop your question down below in the comment section on this very video. I'll include your question in next week's edition. So the first question comes from FD from Facebook, kind of on that same note because it has a lot to do with the business side of WWE right now. He said, do you feel that WWE and the mayor of Orange County have made a bad decision in labeling WWE as, quote, essential business, unquote, as we saw record low ratings for Raw this week? Is it necessary for pro wrestling to be considered as essential business, despite the nature which absolutely does not look essential? So week by week here on the show, things are changing rapidly. I talked a week ago here on the show and you guys asked me about, should they continue to tape TV? Will they continue to tape TV? What will they do? It sounded like at the time, which even then isn't too safe, that they would tape all their TV for a month this past week, and then they would air it up until Money in the Bank. That to me makes sense. That makes sense, which is what they did with WrestleMania because they had the stay-at-home policy, whatever. At that point, they were not essential media, essential business, whatever. Now they are. They had there was something put in place that now labels them as an essential business. Now, we can go on forever about the conspiracy theories and not even conspiracy theories, but like there's actual facts and evidence supporting this theory that the same day that WWE was deemed essential business by the province of Orange County, Florida, whatever, Linda McMahon, who was previously in Trump's cabinet, President Donald Trump's cabinet, donated like $18.5 million to the Trump administration, or her super PAC or PAC or POC or whatever. I don't know. I'm not too into politics, so I'm not 100% sure. But there is a connection there. That happened the same day that WWE was deemed an essential business. Now listen, do I think it's essential? Absolutely not. I love wrestling. I won't complain about getting wrestling. I'm not going to sit here and whine and moan and bitch like a lot of people have on Twitter about, fuck this company for running shows. Listen, it's their choice. It's also the wrestler's choice, too. I mean, I know probably refusing to work will not do them any favors. So it's a lose-lose. Because if they go, they don't want to get sick. But if they don't go, they may, fear getting fired, especially now with all these people being let go. But at the end of the day, it's their choice. Like, I know Roman Reigns sat home, and he's a big star, so he can kind of, he can kind of get away with it. But the same can't be said for everyone else, of course. So I totally get it. I don't work there, so I can't say, it's your choice. Like, obviously, stay home if you don't feel safe. And again, they can do that, but at the end of the day, they may not have a job anymore. You know what I'm saying? So it's a real tough situation. I don't think they should be doing live shows. Not at all. If they're going to run live shows, they better make them fucking good. And thankfully, Monday's Raw I thought was solid. I enjoyed the show on Monday. But, like, they can't be doing this. I mean, I just don't think it's safe because at some point someone's bound to contract it. There was a report the other day from Fightful over the weekend that someone in the company actually contracted the coronavirus, an on-air personality that wasn't an in-ring talent. So probably an interviewer or commentator or whatever. I would assume an interviewer or a referee or whatever. It was never revealed who that person is. It doesn't really matter. But they got it, so what's stopping them? What's stopping anyone else on the roster from contracting it if they're flying these people in and out every single week? And that's really all it takes. I don't really think they'll contract it from the PC, obviously. It's more so the traveling, being on planes, being out in the open, being out in public, taking all these, maybe not ride shares, but anything where you're getting into a car that's not your own, all this other shit. And I'm sure they're taking extra safety precautions, but taking a fever, that doesn't exactly mean, you don't have it if you don't have a fever. You may still have it. You may be an A carrier, asymptomatic, whatever, and still have it. There's a lot to, unfold there, a lot to unpack. So I think it's dumb. I do not think they're essential. I enjoy wrestling. I mean, I'm not going to sit here and rant and rave about how, they should shut down, like Vince McMahon's an asshole. Like, it's dumb, but like at the end of the day, they're going to do what they're going to do. So, not to say that they should be let off the hook for that, but it's just a really bad situation all around, especially with the record low ratings, like you said. Like, I don't think people are going to want to tune in just because they know it's live. I think if it's taped, that it doesn't really matter. Like, they taped all their shows before Mania, including Mania, and a lot of those spoilers did not get out. So I would think it's perfectly fine for them to continue to tape TV and not let spoilers get out and all this other stuff. I just think it's ridiculous, but it is what it is, I suppose, at this point. So I got to interrupt real quick, go back to my internet browser back on Google Chrome here. There was more releases announced, as I expected there to be. A lot of producers, let me see, from... there were a ton of producers let go. Billy Kidman, Pat Buck, who I feel bad for because he just got hired last year, I believe. Sean Daivari, Scott Armstrong, that sucks. He's been with the company a long time. Sarah Stock, the former Sarita from TNA, she's been there a while working with the women. That's a big blow. Finley's gone. Mike Rotunda, Bray Wyatt's dead. IRS, oh my God, on tax day? That's absolutely terrible. We just said happy tax day 20 minutes ago, and look where we are. Lance Storm, again, just hired. That fucking sucks. That's a real big shame. In terms of talent, they also let go, according to WWE.com. And by the way, all that news came from, at James Rolls Jr., excuse me. He's usually really, really reliable, that type of stuff. Fightful is also Sean Rossap, is also reporting and all that as well. On WWE.com, we have Aiden English has been let go, as well as Kurt Angle has also been let go. That's a big shame. He retired a year ago. He's been under a Legends deal for a while. He doesn't really make many appearances, so I can't say I'm really surprised But that does suck. I mean, you want to see the guy back with the company. He worked for a long time to come back, and I'm sure they will be brought back at some point. Some of these people, not everybody, but like the producers, that's a lot of producers. Like, they hired a lot of these people because they like to hoard talent so they don't go to AEW, you know? Man, that fucking sucks. Let's see. I'm trying to see if there's any other releases on my timeline. I'm not seeing any at the moment. Oh, man. Yeah, no, I'm trying to update you guys as we go along here, because obviously you know more than I do at this point, because you're listening to this after the fact. But it doesn't look like there's been any more in the last couple of minutes. I mean, I'm sure there's going to be more going forward, but that's a lot of. This is the most releases they've had in definitely years. Like, usually it's 10. This is, including producers, this is more like 20. That is a lot of people. Man, that's a big shame. We'll continue along here with the next question. I'll discuss more of the releases as we go along, and again, more in great detail on Wrestle Rant Radio tomorrow. FD's second question: with health experts saying that concerts and sporting events, including pro wrestling, would be able to return to normal with crowds at least until fall 2021, do you feel this will affect the wrestling industry in terms of potential closures of independent wrestling companies or even wrestlers' careers overall? If that is the case, yes, it'll practically kill indie wrestling. That's a long time. That's like a year and a half. It's the spring of 2020. I have not heard the fall of 2021. I've heard the fall of 2020. That's when Trump was looking to get things back on track for the country, and getting sporting events back in order and stuff. But that's still maybe too soon. I don't think fall 2021. I think that's a long time. It very well may be. We still don't know a lot about this virus and everything else, so we really don't know right now. It's crazy. So if that is the case, yes, that's going to kill a lot of things, including pro wrestling. Not kill it, but like greatly impact it, especially indie wrestlers who, rely on wrestling for an income, and, a lot of indie shows, and, WrestleCon. That would put WrestleMania 37 in jeopardy too. So I hope it's not fall of 2021. It very well may be. I don't really watch the news as much in the last couple weeks, just because it's not going to change anything for the most part. I would honestly, ignorance is bliss. I would rather not know and just ride this thing out until it gets better. It's pretty terrible though. So if it is fall of 2021, and you're right, I haven't heard that, but I really hope not. That's going to kill a lot of, forms of entertainment, sports, movie theaters, I think would close up. It's unbelievable. It really is. It's scary times we're living in right now. A lot of uncertainty in the world at the moment. But hopefully that's not the case. We can only hope, right? His third question: in your opinion, is the XFL 2020 revival considered as a total failure overall, or something quite promising for pro football, yet could not be able to excel further because of the virus, and why? Also, what will happen to Vince's future financial priority now that the project he was mainly invested in, separating himself from WWE, is now gone? The whole XFL thing, it sucks. I enjoyed the XFL. I'm not even really a big football fan, of course, and I talked about it probably here on the show before. I thought it went well. I thought the debut weekend was good. I would make it a point every weekend for the month that I was around for to watch the games. And then they had to close up shop last Friday. It was announced that XFL had to close up shop. They laid off all their employees, and it sucks. It really does. Would not be coming back for a 2021 season, which I kind of figured when they announced that they would be shutting down the rest of the season about a month ago. I said as much, and sure enough, despite the fact they said they would be back, it looks like they're not. They filed for bankruptcy soon after. So it's a real big shame. Do I think it's a total failure? No, I don't, because the NFL, picked up a few talents from the XFL, so they were a success in that respect. Got good ratings for the most part. Introduced a lot of things I think that the NFL could learn from. So no, I don't think it was a total failure. Financially, maybe, because it was, they filed for bankruptcy and whatnot. And it didn't even last as long as the initial version of the XFL. They didn't even last the full season because of the current circumstances, which sucks. And I don't think, would they have filed for bankruptcy anyway if they played the full season? They just realized they weren't going to make money off of it? Maybe. That's also entirely possible. I do think the virus, if anything, sped up the process, which is very unfortunate. But yeah, no, I don't think it's a complete failure. That's purely my opinion. I'm not wearing my Defenders hat currently, but I do have it downstairs in my room. But yeah, I don't think it's a complete failure because it did introduce a lot of concepts I think the NFL can learn from. They introduced a lot of new talents from the football world into the NFL realm, and they hired a couple people, like I said, a couple of weeks ago, about a month ago before this whole thing went down. Or no, actually, it did happen after it went down because they shut down the XFL season and then they were able to re-sign or, sign with other, the NFL and other promotions or whatever. So, no, not a complete failure, but it is a shame overall that they had to close up shop when they did. And as soon as they did, too. At Time Bomb Zone from Twitter, their first question was, if Okada went to WWE, would they waste his talent or would he be one of the few that does well on the main roster? Yeah, I think they would completely ruin Okada. I'm not going to lie to you. After seeing what they've done with Nakamura, who might be better. I mean, Okada is definitely a bigger talent and he's a better talent than Nakamura. I'm not going to say that he's not because I think he definitely is. Okada is just, he's a star in and of himself. Way more than Nakamura, which is saying something because Nakamura is great too. I've never been confident, and not just because of what Impact did with him about a decade ago, but I've never really been confident that if Okada was to come in WWE, even NXT, that I think they would use him properly. I don't know how good his English is. It doesn't even really matter. It's just their track record of booking Japanese talents, Asian talents, whatever, is not great. Nakamura won a Rumble. I mean, Asuka and Nakamura won Rumbles in the same year. The same year they both lost to WrestleMania. And they've been successful to a certain extent, but they've never really had, like, a Japanese star as the guy or the girl in WWE. Asuka was for a short period in NXT, and Nakamura as well. Never on the main roster have they ever been focused on as, the guy or the girl like Roman Reigns is, or as, Becky Lynch is currently. So I would rather him just stay where he is in New Japan. He's having amazing matches over there. Why mess up something that, why ruin that? Why ruin a good thing? I know Nakamura, he just doesn't want to take as many bumps, and he's probably making more money in WWE than he was in New Japan for maybe not it's a more hectic style, not style, but like schedule. But, he likes to surf in Florida, and that's all that's important to Shinsuke Nakamura. So, if that's not important to Okada, surfing's not important to Okada, then I would stay right where he is in New Japan. Time Bomb Zone's next question, thoughts on Sami Callihan's new gimmick? The whole ICU thing, I don't mind it. I like it currently. I like it personally just because it reminds me of the hacker gimmick that he kind of sort of had, but not really in NXT. So the story on that apparently was that he had a hacker gimmick in NXT, and then they ditched it because it just either wasn't working or Triple H soured on it, and then they ended up going with it on NXT TV. Kind of, but not really. They teased it, he debuted with it, but they never really went full throttle with it, and it just flopped, and he was gone from the company by the end of the year. He requested his release, and that was it, so he left. He didn't really bring that anywhere else. He's been much different in Impact and other promotions that I've seen him in Northeast Wrestling. But I think it's cool that he's doing the virus thing currently in Impact. I think it's a good gimmick on him. I like the ending of Impact personally. The whole the hocus pocus shit I'm not a big fan of all the time, but when done right in a pre-taped environment, it can be cool. And I thought they did a good job with it on Tuesday last night with Shamrock and Callahan and the whole the lights go out and there's people wearing the ICU masks. So anyway, I like the gimmick. Some other people may not. They may not love the gimmick. I like the hacker thing initially, and I like it now. And the music is great, too. I forgot what it's called. Maybe called Riot or something like that, but I know Shotzi Blackheart used it for a while. And WWE used it as a promo for the Women's Elimination Chamber match a couple of years ago. I think in 2018, so it's a good song. But yeah, I like the new gimmick personally. Thoughts on WWE being deemed an essential business by the mayor of Florida? I already talked about this earlier, but are they an essential business? Obviously, absolutely not. They are not an essential business. That's complete bullshit. Listen, I'm glad we're getting live wrestling and currently, and I'll discuss more about how that affects me and how that impacts me in a moment, because someone actually asked about that, and selfishly, how do I feel about no active wrestling if they were to go down that, route, down that road with no weekly wrestling, I'll talk about how that would impact me in a moment. But I think the safety of the performers comes first, and I think just taping everything like AEW reportedly did would be a lot smarter, personally. But that's just my opinion. But yeah, I don't think they're an essential business. I really don't. I think the whole thing's ridiculous. But I thought Raw on Monday was good, so that doesn't make up for anything at all. I'm just kidding. But yeah, they got to get their shit straight, because I don't think flying these talents out, just tape it all at once. Just fly them out once, and even that's unsafe. But I don't know if we've hit the peak yet with this thing. I still have no idea what the fuck is going on. So I just don't think it's smart, because I do think it's only inevitable before one of the performers gets it, and when they do, it's all over. I don't think it's a case where we quarantine them. The on-air personality got it after WrestleMania, whatever. If they were actually filming TV and they were worried that someone may have contracted it, then that's different. So anyway, I just don't see that happening. I don't see them continuing to run shows if someone was to contract the virus. But we are talking about Vince McMahon here, and he is buddy-buddy with Donald Trump, so anything is possible, I suppose. At Reborn Again, John Ritland from the YouTube machine. Be sure to check out a show, Real Honesty, with John Ritland from YouTube. He's at Reborn Again on the Twitter, of course. His first question was, should WWE have Io Shirai beat Charlotte Flair for the NXT Women's Championship to give the roster someone better to chase than Charlotte? As you can tell, I'm not a fan of Charlotte holding the championship again. Neither am I. I discussed this last week in great detail on this show and on Wrestle Rant Radio. I just don't think it's smart to have Charlotte as the champion. Yeah, it provides a lot of, good matches. Oh, Charlotte versus Io, amazing. Just save that shit for the main roster when Io gets to the main roster, hopefully, at some point. If they fear that she's going to leave before the end of the year, then that's one thing. But if not, and they want her to stay, then hopefully they would save Io and Charlotte for the main roster. I know you could always go back to it. I don't know. I think it benefits Charlotte more than it benefits NXT. Because to have Charlotte go in there and just run through the entire division, to me, doesn't benefit anyone. And I think the only person who makes sense to take that belt off of Charlotte is Rhea. Unless they're calling Rhea up to the main roster, which I think it's too soon for that. And yeah, she could thrive on the main roster tomorrow or yesterday or today, whatever the expression is. I just don't think it's smart, though, because I think there's a lot more for her to do in NXT. I wanted to see Rhea and Io. I wanted to see Rhea and Tegan, Rhea and Dakota. And I don't know if we're going to be getting that. I'm not exactly sure. I think Rhea is the person to chase. Io and Rhea would have made perfect sense, but they didn't do that. I feel like they taped the NXT stuff before Mania, so they didn't know that Charlotte would be winning the championship, and they figured it would be Rhea and Io. Because Io and Charlotte, it's two heels. It doesn't really make much sense. Doesn't change the fact the match is going to be amazing, don't get me wrong, hopefully, but because Charlotte's very, very good. I don't know, I feel like they have a problem of, they've already had Charlotte beat everyone. Well, that's a fucking Charlotte problem. That's not an NXT problem. Don't bring her problem to NXT. It benefits her with all these fresh matches, sure, but it doesn't benefit the women's division that was already stacked as it is and does not need Charlotte Flair. I cannot state that enough. Before we go any further, like I said, I'm going to check periodically here to see more releases. We'll update WWE.com. Again, you guys know more than I do about the releases and whatnot. It doesn't look like WWE.com has any more releases as it stands currently. Let's check Twitter. Kurt Angle, Finlay released. Already discussed that earlier. Yeah, I think I got it. I think I'm up to date with all the... Sorry, I just saw someone post a funny meme. Oh, man. Wait a second. I think there is an update here. Because someone is saying that Mike Chioda, longtime referee, has been let go as well. That is crazy. He's been there for a long, long time. And Sarah Logan, that's another surprising one. I'm not seeing that on the WWE page. I'm seeing that from some people on Twitter, but I'm not seeing that. Let me see. Let me go to WWE's Twitter page. I am not seeing any. I'm not seeing where they're talking about Sarah Logan. I'm sure maybe she will be added. I mean, I'm not sure. I'm not seeing that currently. But Mike Chioda, that's crazy. He's been there forever. And they're letting him go? That's nuts. I mean, I can see them letting go of people like MVP, people like that. Yeah, people are saying Sarah Logan. Holy shit. That's crazy. Mike Chioda. I don't know where people are seeing this, the whole Mike Chioda and Sarah Logan thing, but I'm not seeing it currently. But if so, that's nuts. That's more people let go. Man, this whole thing's a very shitty situation. That's a lot of people. Yes, they hoarded talent, but it sucks to be let go without, having a say in the matter. It would be nice if these people asked for their releases and then they got let go. But a lot of these people probably were blindsided by the news, That's very unfortunate. John's second question here. I'll go back to Twitter in a while. I'll go probably towards the end of the episode. So Ronda Rousey's recent comments, are they a work, a shoot, or did she work herself into a shoot because fans basically turned on her around November of 2018? I think they're a work. I completely agree with what CM Punk said on Backstage last night, that she knows what she's doing. She's always been a master shit talker. Does she actually feel that way about the fans? I'm sure there's a part of her that feels that way, if not 100%. But she's also making this public, and the fact that Backstage even ran the video of it and they discussed it last night, to me means she's coming back at some point. She knows that she's coming back. She knows she has unfinished business. She never said she wouldn't come back. She just said she would never be full-time again, which I mean, she was never, I mean, I guess she was full-time for the year that she was there, and she was never going to continue to be full-time forever. But she will be back. I do think it's a work. And maybe Nia Jax's comments are a work too. People are saying, oh, what if she's a work? And I thought, hey, listen, I thought Nia Jax may have worked herself into a shoot or whatever. Maybe she's working too. Who knows? Maybe this is all one elaborate storyline with Ronda and Nia and everyone else. I do think Ronda's comments are a work. I don't know about Nia and all the other people, but definitely Ronda Rousey in my opinion. Because she did this when she was in the company a year ago. She was saying this shit while she was in the company that covered it on Total Divas, all this other shit. She's like, oh, wrestling fake. And she said on the show, like, I did that to stir up controversy to get people to hate me. Why would now be any different? Why would she come out now and say this shit? Because she's probably coming back at some point. Maybe not this year, but she is coming back. She wants to remain relevant, keep her, name in the mouths of a lot of fans and their minds and whatnot. So, well, I completely believe it's all a work. And maybe Nia's in it on it too, and I don't think she is, but also I'm not the biggest Nia Jax fan, so I'm not giving her enough credit. But definitely Ronda Rousey, I feel, is in on it. His third question, does WWE need to go to a two-person commentary team? It just seems like the three-person team gets too jumbled and no one can call anything properly. I discussed this a couple of weeks ago, but yes, I do think a two-person commentary team would be better. We have that on SmackDown, and people don't love Michael Cole, they don't love Corey Graves. Hey, but it's a lot better than having freaking Byron Saxton in there with them, or Jerry Lawler, whoever, It's a decent team because it's two people. If anything else, it's refreshing in that respect. Raw, I think, could benefit from just having it be Tom and Byron. Jerry Lawler serves zero purpose. Not in recent years anyway. The guy's 70. I'm sure he's a really nice guy. Love Jerry. He's obviously a Hall of Famer, icon, whatever. His current commentary sucks. Coming off of Monday, that Asian comment that he made about the ramen noodle thing about Akira Tozawa, I'm not one to be overly sensitive, but that was a dumb thing to say. You can't defend that. Like, that was a really dumb thing to say. You can't chastise Jim Cornette for what he said, which also was blown out of proportion, maybe a little bit, but it was a dumb thing for him to say as well. And this was also stupid. He should not have said that. Jerry Lawler, he's probably not as hard to work with as Cornette is, and that was probably another reason why they let him go. He's just bad publicity. Jerry Lawler just says he's been saying dumb stuff for years now, but it's more so prevalent now because of how the world is. It's just a different time. You can't be saying shit like that, so get rid of Lawler. For NXT, I like Beth. I hate to say it because I've really, she came across great on that NXT or that Edge documentary, that 24 last week. But she just doesn't really serve much of a purpose. I'm going to be honest with you. She's improved, and I give her credit for that. But I just think it would benefit from just being Morrow and Nigel. They don't really need a third person, in my opinion. So, yeah, I do think a two-person commentary team. AEW has a three-person team, too. I don't know. I hate to say, WWE shouldn't do it, but AEW can. I don't know. I like the three-person team in AEW. They don't take away from the action for me. They're really finding their rhythm. Jim Ross, Excalibur, and Tony Schiavone. I love Schiavone. I love Ross, and Excalibur is really good, too. That's the only three-man team I can really think of that I'm like, oh, yeah, keep that one. Like, the NXT one, Beth can go. I like Beth, but she does not need to be there. Impact is a two-man team with Don Callis and Josh Matthews. Ring of Honor has a two-man team with Ian Riccaboni, and I think Caprice Coleman, because Colt's gone. NWA has Joe Galley, I believe, and Stu Bennett, obviously. How could I forget? But, yeah, so I think a two-man team is a lot better than three. It's really not an issue with a lot of companies except for WWE, but yeah, a two-man team is way more bearable and a lot less confusing than a three-person team. At noob_n_co 1991, what are your thoughts in the comments from Ronda Rousey over the weekend, and how will this affect the women's division in WWE and the WWE fans? I just got done talking about this, but I do think, I will say, and I know I'm not the only one who believes this, and I've said this for a while now, I've said this for about 9 months to a year, the women's division has been worse off since Ronda Rousey left. She was focused, and not just because they focused on her, but I feel like she made that division legitimate. They put a lot of effort into that women's division. And part of it is on WWE. Like, it's not to say, like, oh, the division's shit without Ronda. Like, she needs to be there. Like, she doesn't need to. They could put that same amount of effort into building up other people, not name the 4 horsewomen. They don't need Ronda, but I think she does help the division a lot. She gave them, put a lot of new eyes on that division. She had a lot of good matches. She was legitimate, cut some good promos by the end there. I really enjoyed Ronda Rousey's run, in my opinion. I know that's not the most popular opinion, and she's hated now because of these comments. But I 100% think that the women's division was better off for having her. So I think when she does come back at some point, it may not be this year, but it will be at some. She will absolutely be back. I'm 100% sure, certain, positive on that. It just may not be anytime soon. But when she does, I do think the women's division, in my opinion, will be better off. So I think the women's division can be affected positively by her coming back. It just may not be in the foreseeable future. And their second question. Do you think WWE should stop all live shows in the Performance Center before they make things worse for the talent and for the fans? Yeah, I mean, I said this earlier, but they should. They should stop all the live shows, tape them. Even that's not too smart. I know Impact did it. Like, you can't shit on AEW or you can't shit in WWE and then leave it for WWE or like AEW. Like, oh, they could tape shows, but not WWE. Like, you can't really do that. They're going to tape shows, then let them tape shows. I don't think even that's smart right now. They should probably stop all production completely, like Ring of Honor, and they're not doing anything. Instead, they're filling their TV time, and Ring of Honor is different than WWE, but they're filling all their TV time with in-depth interviews and looks at all the talents and stuff. I think that's great. Full-length matches, pay-per-view matches, their best of, and stuff like that. I think that's really, really smart. And I do think that WWE can do more of that too. They can't do full-length match replays every single week, but I don't know. If the safety of their performers is of the utmost importance, they might have to at some point, So I do think they should stop the live shows, but they've already proven they won't. And at some point, they might have to if someone contracts it, and then the authorities step in even more so than the Orange County mayor or whatever. It might go well beyond that. But if Trump had to play in this, again, I'm not going to blame Trump or go into politics or whatever, but I do think that may have something to do with it. Again, the timing of them being deemed an essential business, and then days later, Trump saying on that on the news or whatever that the great Vince McMahon, like he mentioned WWE. And I think that's because Vince is still very much fresh in his mind because he just gave him the clearance to do all these shows because they're very good friends. So anyway, that's a whole other thing for another time. But in a nutshell, do I think they should stop the live shows? Yes, I do. At Jeremy8911 from Twitter, thoughts on getting Braun Strowman versus The Fiend for the Universal Championship Money in the Bank. Again, I agree with CM Punk, and I'm biased because I'm a Punk fan, but he was right. He said on Backstage last night that it feels rushed and that it feels like a SummerSlam feud, and it is. I feel like to go into this now, it's a lose-lose because Braun should not be losing, and The Fiend should not be losing either. I like the feud a lot. I like the history. It's very interesting. I just don't think now is the time to do it, to be honest with you. So just poor timing. I'm looking forward to seeing what they do with it, and excuse me, I do think The Fiend should get the belt back at some point. I know a lot of people won't like that idea just because they thought he was a bad champion, bad matches. I don't know. I'm more interested in The Fiend than Braun Strowman, in my opinion, but I don't know. They should have done Braun versus, I don't know, if they actually built up people, they could have done Braun versus Nakamura or Braun versus, maybe not Cesaro, but like, they don't really have many choices, so I don't know. I know it was supposed to be Roman. I don't know. It would have been Roman and The Fiend coming out of Mania, and that's more of a post-WrestleMania feud than a SummerSlam feud. Again, I like the feud. I think it's just way too soon. I just don't see how this ends well for both guys, because someone's got to lose, unless they do a non-finish, which is bullshit, so just poor timing is all. Do you agree that Shayna Baszler shouldn't be in the Money in the Bank ladder match and doesn't need it to face Becky Lynch again? I completely agree. She does not need to be... what they should be doing is Becky and Shayna 2 at the pay-per-view. Maybe they're saving it for another time, but it sounds like if Shayna's in the match... I think it'd be weird if Shayna was in the match and she didn't win, and then she went right after Becky. Like, their feud is not over, I don't think. I do think they will rekindle that rivalry at some point, probably with Shayna as the Miss Money in the Bank. Mrs. Money in the Bank. I think it's Miss Money in the Bank, isn't it? Miss and Mr. Money in the Bank. But anyway, so with Shayna, I do think she's going to win it. I don't think she needs it. I completely agree. I do think they could just go back to that match and say, listen, you didn't beat me fair and square. You beat me on a fluke. You merely rolled me up when I had you in a submission, and you would have tapped out if we kept going there. So I would just keep the feud going without the briefcase in play. But it looks like that's what they're going for here, so I think that's silly, and Shayna's probably going to win even though she doesn't need it. And she doesn't really strike me as the cowardly type of character anyway. She could just go in there and kill people, like she did Sarah Logan on Raw this week. I don't think she needs to be in there as Miss Money in the Bank and cash in opportunistically, whatever. I just don't think that really fits her character well at all. Sasha maybe, definitely not Shayna. At E13A, very interesting question here. I'm very happy that Emmanuel asked this. As a reviewer of wrestling shows, how would you feel if WWE, AEW, and all other promotions actually did stop working during the current pandemic? I'm very glad you asked that question because, like I said, it would negatively impact me to not have, because even as it stands right now, I'm not reviewing, there's no NWA. There's no NWA to review. There's no Ring of Honor. It's all old content they've been putting up lately. There's nothing to review there. So that's 2 less things I'm covering. WWE still covering. They're still doing shows. Impact still doing shows. AEW still doing shows. And I think that's it. I do cover NWA and Ring of Honor. I'm trying to think what else I cover in terms of other promotions. I think that's it. But, I mean, it would suck. It would suck to not have any new content. It drives down, website traffic and, my work and stuff like that for Bleacher Report. Right now, I think we are going to be focusing more on a retrospective, on a retrospective front, because there's not a lot to break down from the current product because people aren't invested in the current product because of the current situation. So we have to focus on stuff from years ago. And it stinks. I really want to be able to review the current stuff, and I will talk about it, obviously, but it can't be our bread and butter because there's just not a lot of interest there right now. So it hurts me, but at the same time, it's more than just about me. I'm not going to sit here and say, oh my God, resume the live shows. I need to watch my wrestling on Mondays. I need to be able to review Raw. I really don't. I don't. It does hurt me in the long run, from a job standpoint, from a content standpoint, reviewing stuff. But at the same time, it's about the fucking performers. I'm not putting them at risk. I would not do that. I just think that's silly. So if it was up to me, I would stop the live shows. I don't run the company. It's their decision. They have TV deals. They're doing what they feel is best, I guess. I don't know. It's a whole situation. I would love to be a fly in the room for that. But we have the WWE Network. I can always go back and watch old content. So if nothing else, there is that. I've not been bored at all for the last month. And that's just me. That's just the type of person I am. I do not get bored. I do not run out of stuff to watch or review because there's so much content out there I haven't seen in a long time or haven't seen at all that I can still review. That, for me, I can find other ways. I can find other stuff to review if Raw is not on the air weekly. It does hurt to not have fresh stuff, but I can always go back and review WrestleMania 17, a review of Raw I've never seen from 1998. You know what I mean? So it does suck, but at the end of the day, if it does put less people at risk, then I'm happy. Next question from @Scarlet1. Thoughts on AEW still doing Double or Nothing next month? So yeah, the news did come out on Tuesday night that Double or Nothing is not happening at the MGM Grand in Las Vegas. I mean, obviously. We all hoped it would be over by then, but I mean, it's clearly not going to be. A lot of things have been canceled through the end of May, graduations. Why would Double or Nothing be any different? What, they're going to fill in 15,000 people, whatever it is in that arena? Give me a break. So they're still doing the show. It's a lot like WrestleMania. I assume they will probably film it. Again, I can't shit on WWE for oh my God, they're an essential business, blah, blah, blah. And then people are like, oh yeah, AEW, they should do their pay-per-view. It doesn't work like that. If it applies to one company, it applies to both. They probably shouldn't be doing it either. They should probably take a big break as well. But if they are, intent on doing these shows, and because they're still flying people out, maybe not from California, New York, I read, which is a nice, step in the right direction, unlike WWE. But they're still flying people out for these shows. It's still putting people at risk when the whole idea is to stay home right now. You got to stay home. So if they're going to do Double or Nothing, hopefully it's taped in advance or whatever. Like Rebellion, I think they already taped in front of an empty arena, I believe. And they're airing it not as a pay-per-view, but over the course of 2 weeks. And WrestleMania wasn't free. I mean, it's the network, so it kind of is. And I don't know. I've read that Double or Nothing will still be available as a pay-per-view, but I think making people pay $60 for it, yeah, you could still pay for Mania on pay-per-view, but at least they had the network and it's $10, or at the very least, you could sign up for a free month. You could have watched WrestleMania for free if you signed up for a free account and got the 30-day trial. They don't have that for, the Bleacher Report live stuff. I watch it for free because I work for Bleacher Report, which is cool, but everyone else has to pay $50, $60 for an empty arena show. I don't think that's fair. That's a whole other issue. I wouldn't do the show, but again, if they're adamant about continuing to tape television, they're going to have to tape Double or Nothing at some point, so that's the current situation. Best and worst of the Wednesday Night Wars, number 26. I forgot to write down what happened, but I thought Dynamite last week was good. I like Cody and Shawn. Love the Jericho-Hardy challenge. I love Jericho being on commentary. That was the best part of the entire show. I'm trying to think what else happened. The Hikaru Shida-Britt Baker match was fucking great. I love that. Worst, I didn't really care for the Nakazawa and Kenny Omega versus Best Friends match. It was good, but who cares? It doesn't mean anything. It was just a fun little match. I enjoyed it, but in the long run, does it really matter? Probably not. But I enjoyed the show overall. Lance Archer was in action. I thought that was cool. For NXT, there really wasn't a lot to break down there. I thought the Indus Sher, or whatever their tag team name is called, wasn't a big fan of their debut. I thought it was decent. I really need to see more of them to get a good grasp on what they're capable of and how good they are. I thought the ladder match was great. Not the same without fans, but they tried. And I like Gargano and Ciampa. It wasn't as good as their other encounters. I would say it was the weakest of all 4 or 5 matches they've had. But I thought it was better than Edge and Orton, and it was longer. And it's not like, oh, NXT, that's why it was better. Like, I don't know, I just thought it was better formatted, and the commercial breaks hurt. I thought the commentary, there was no commentary, so I thought it was better in that respect. Unlike with, Edge and Orton, where it sounded like they were calling a freaking golf tournament. Tom Phillips and Byron Saxton, that is. I thought they did a good job of keeping things interesting. I didn't mind the finish. It was kind of a little illogical to have Candice come out at the end when she could have just come out in the beginning and have just turn on Ciampa to begin with and not swerve and, low blow her husband. That whole thing was weird, but it gives us heel Candice and heel Johnny, so I think it's cool in that respect. So I enjoyed both shows overall. I'm hoping for similar and equally entertaining shows tonight. Thoughts on the XFL and Alpha Entertainment filing for bankruptcy. Discussed this earlier, but it sucks. I enjoyed the XFL. It was a nice alternative, I think, to the NFL for a lot of people. Got good ratings, good reviews. It's a real shame because I think Vince did it right this time around, and we'll never know if it would have filed for bankruptcy anyway. Because come the end of the season, they just didn't make enough money to warrant, for all the money they put into it, they didn't make that money back, and they just can't go on, or they didn't, the TV deals didn't want to be renewed, like the TV companies, NBC, blah, 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 didn't want to renew their deals. They could have ended up closing up shop anyway. This may have just sped up the process, but we'll never know. So it sucks that they never really were given a proper chance to be what they could have been the first time around because they were so good this time and they had a lot of momentum, and then this shit happened and it sucks. So hopefully they can come back at some point, but it just may be a better case of listen, not third time's the charm. Let's just put this away and never go back to it again because he lost a lot of money on this thing. Like Linda the Senate run, I remember more vividly because I live here in Connecticut, but she went for Senate in 2010 and again in 2012. She failed the first time. She did better the second time, but she still lost. It's like, no, don't go for Senate again. Stop wasting all this money. You're not going to win. Just let it be. And they could, maybe third time is the charm. And the XFL ends up having a sustained, a lot of sustained success, and they stick around. But I would just leave it be. I think just leave the memories alone, as the old promo, that video package from Shawn Michaels and Ric Flair would dictate after Ric Flair, retired back in 2008. Leave the memories alone. Let it be. Third time is not always the charm. Do not lose more money. Do not put more money into this. Don't put more money into this 20 years from now after another 20 years passes. And Vince would be 95 at that point, so I assume he doesn't make it that far. If he does, I don't think he'll be looking at creating the XFL again. Either way, just leave it be. I wouldn't bring it back. It sucks. The circumstances are terrible, but just focus that, put that money into other stuff. And people saying this hurts WWE because Vince is going to be more hands-on because he was all about the XFL. That was never the case. A lot of people thought maybe this takes his attention off of WWE. It never did. We did not hear one single report about Vince saying, Vince being more hands-off with WWE because he's more focused on the XFL. I'm sure it was a factor, but that was never really the case. The product is not drastically improved because Vince was busy with the XFL. That never happened. So I don't really think them closing up shop will hurt or help WWE. It sucks the company. They were involved with it and they claim that they weren't. It's just a lot of bad publicity right now for this company. But it sucks. It's a terrible situation. Thoughts on the Revival being released from WWE. Let me just see what the timestamp is here. We're closing in on an hour. Anyway, thoughts on the Revival being released from WWE. I thought it was more a matter of when and not if. When they asked for their releases so many times. I know Carl Anderson and Luke Gallows, they were let go today, but they requested their release about a year and a half ago, and they ended up sticking around. Revival were more adamant about it. They were more, vocal about wanting their release multiple times. So, again, I know they gave them 3 tag team title reigns last year, all this other shit, but they were gonna be let go eventually. So, I'm glad they got their due. I'm glad they're gone from the company, and hopefully they can focus on going to NWA at some point, AEW, when all this shit blows over, depending on when it blows over. But yeah, I think they were gonna be let go eventually anyway. WWE isn't gonna. They can't re-sign them. They chose not to re-sign, so it's not entirely surprising. But I am glad they finally have their freedom. Thoughts on Jerry Lawler's commentary as of late? Well, I discussed this earlier, but it's not been good. For years now. His commentary wasn't good even 5-10 years ago, let alone in the last couple of weeks. He's not needed on Raw. I think the whole idea was, if we have him as a credible voice for, Vic Joseph and Dio Madden. It's like he's not, though. He's just not that good. He's not that good. He makes a lot of dumb remarks. He's not entertaining. He serves no purpose behind the booth at all. And again, I like the guy. I like Jerry Lawler, but for the last 10 years at least, he's been a complete waste on commentary. He does not need to be there. The guy doesn't give a shit. He's never really given a shit, but more so in the last decade, he doesn't give a shit. They really should have just let him retire from commentary after he had the heart attack. But of course, they brought him back like 2 months later. And that situation was awful, but it's like, they don't need to have him on commentary. He doesn't really lend a lot of credibility. He's just not that. I mean, maybe in a different setting he would be fine, like on the pre-show panels like he was a couple of years ago. But as an on-air, having a regular on-air presence on Raw and whatnot, it's just not working out. And it's been months now. He's been back for over 6 months. And they have shown no... I mean, yeah, he was gone a couple of weeks ago because of the whole pandemic. But other than that, they still brought him in. They still brought him in on Monday. So, anyway, I think, yeah, he needs to go. They need to take him off commentary, replace him with someone else, or hey, better yet, just keep it with Tom and Byron. Like I said earlier, there's no need for Jerry Lawler to be on commentary anyway. We'll close it out with a couple questions here. At Undisputed Diva, Eva's question, or her first question was, where will Becky Lynch and Charlotte Flair fall in wrestling history? I think, obviously, I mean, if no one wants to agree with this, if people don't want to agree with this, that's one thing, but I think it's maybe not a fact, but I think it's hard to argue it, that Charlotte Flair is one of the greatest women's wrestlers of all time. I know it's still early. She's only been around for about 5 or 6 years. But people were saying Trish was one of the greatest of all time 5 or 6 years into her run, after she retired after 6 years. Charlotte's been on the main roster for 5 years, and she's already done not just more titles won, but better matches, main event in WrestleMania. So I think Charlotte, in the end, will be remembered more fondly than Trish. I know Trish came up in a different time with the bras and panties and the Attitude Era and whatnot. I mean, I don't know. I think in the end, she will have a greater legacy than Trish. Not just because of titles won, because a lot of that shit doesn't mean anything, but in terms of matches and her impact and all this other stuff, because she came up at the perfect time when they started to take women's wrestling more seriously. She was a big part of it, as has Becky. Becky took her a little longer to get there, and she had success a few years ago, but it really wasn't until 2018 that she finally started to come into her own. So because of the impact that Becky's had, selling more merch than most of the men, if not all of the men, she'll go down as one of the greatest they've ever had as well. Main eventing WrestleMania, winning the main event of WrestleMania, her long championship runs, all the matches she's had, a lot of great matches with Charlotte and with Sasha and with a lot of other people. Ronda Rousey, I mean, that match wasn't great, but she did main event WrestleMania with Ronda Rousey, and that's enough to get her into the Hall of Fame, as it should be. But I do think they will go down as two of the greatest of all time. And they just so happen to come up, I think they might be, and I hate to say this because people are going to jump on me for this, they might be the equivalent of what Rock and Stone Cold were to the Attitude Era. Now, they're not bringing in new eyes and stuff like that on a grander scale. I mean, the Bella Twins did too with Total Divas, so let's not discount their impact as well, even though they weren't great in the ring. But Becky and Charlotte, in terms of two big stars that actually matter more than most of the men, like I said, maybe 80% of the men, or even more than that. They're the two biggest stars in the company right now, two of the biggest stars on either brand, any brand that WWE has to offer. And we're getting them currently in the same generation. Not one and then another, not like just Trish and Lita. We're getting them at the same time. That's amazing. Her second question, what woman do you find underrated and want to but don't think she will be inducted into the Hall of Fame? I mean, Victoria is the first name that comes to mind. I think someone replied to your tweet with a Victoria gif. And I think you sent out the tweet, but you didn't direct it towards me. I just so happened to see it on my timeline for some reason. So make sure when you send in the questions to reply either to my tweet or to tweet me with the hashtag, because I don't look up the hashtag. I just go whatever's in my notifications, and sometimes I can't get to everything or I don't see it or whatever. But anyway, I did see your question. I do think Victoria is the first person that comes to my mind because she's been on the outs. She's been on the outs with the company now for a while. For some reason, she doesn't even know why. It sucks. And she deserves to be in the Hall of Fame. She deserves to be back in the good graces of the company. But I always thought Victoria was great. So I do think she belongs in the Hall of Fame. I don't know if she ever will go into the Hall of Fame. I mean, Miss Elizabeth, I don't know if she's underrated, but she belongs in the Hall of Fame. She probably will go in at some point. Victoria is underrated, and I don't think she'll be inducted. So I think she like screams, like when you said that question, like Victoria. Melina, she's underrated. I think Victoria is better. I don't know if she'll ever go into the Hall of Fame. Melina, maybe years down the road. She is another one I think is a little underrated, a tad underrated. Molly Holly, very underrated. I think she will go in eventually. She's been back in the good graces of the company for years now. Not that she ever wasn't, but she's been in Royal Rumble. She's appeared on Raw and Table for Threes and shit like that. So I think she'll be in the Hall of Fame eventually. But she's someone that screams to me as being underrated. Final question comes from Mr. Marceau at RJ_Marceau from the Twitter machine. Do you think there is any chance Io Shirai defeats Charlotte Flair, or is it Charlotte Flair wins? LOL. No, I do think Charlotte wins. LOL. I don't think Io wins. I would love to see it, but hey, it could be a case where Becky became the SmackDown Women's Champion last year and lost it within a month, right back to Charlotte. And Charlotte's no Io, like Charlotte was established, Io is not on the main roster. I think they're going to want to build up Charlotte as this unstoppable force in NXT's women's division before having either Rhea come back and beat her or someone else like a Tegan or something, or a Candice. Probably not Candice, seeing as she's heel now. But anyway, yeah, I do think they're going to want to wait a while to take the championship off of Charlotte. It's something fresh for her, which I think it pales in comparison to what it does for NXT, which is it doesn't really help NXT at all because their women's division was already great without Charlotte. So I wouldn't have put the belt on her, like I said earlier, and I do think they're going to want to drag this out a while. In a perfect world, yes, I would have Io win. It's long overdue. She got so many championship opportunities last year. And RJ and I have discussed this as well, where another one I feel like it's just not going to do her any favor. She went for the championship, 3 times last year? 2 times on a takeover, once in a 4-way and once in a singles match, and then again on TV, and she still lost? That's not good. Like, Bianca got a number of shots, and she ended up getting called up. Io, she could get called up, but I want her to win that championship. I feel it's only appropriate. She's the biggest star in that division, on the same par, if not even more so than Rhea Ripley. So I really want her to win the title. I hope she does. I don't think she will right now. It would have been nice if they held off on this match, but I do think it was a case of they thought Rhea would win at WrestleMania, so they booked Io to win, because I think that was taped beforehand. I'm almost positive it was taped beforehand, and they thought Rhea would win. It's like, okay, Io and Ripley, and then Io can take the belt off of Ripley. That would have made sense. It would have been time for, it still would have been a little early for Rhea to drop the belt, but to Io, it makes sense. To Charlotte, it does not. So at this point, seeing as how Charlotte just won the belt, I don't think Io's winning. And I think she's going to lose another opportunity at the championship, and it just doesn't really make her look all that good. So Charlotte is my pick to win, but Io winning would be amazing. So before we wrap it up here, like I said, we're going to look back at the WWE.com press release with all the releases, because it has been about a half an hour since I last looked, or somewhere around there. So again, I'm kind of finding out about all of this as we go along as well. The WWE.com statement is the same. I don't see anyone else's name added to the WWE.com statement. I'll look on Twitter, because Twitter seems to be more reliable in terms of, they said Sarah Logan, she's not on the WWE.com list, I don't think. Let me double check, because I didn't see her on the .com list, but I saw a lot of people saying on Twitter that she was let go too. Kurt Angle, Drake Maverick. Oh, no, there is more. There are more names. Oh, no, Sarah Logan's name was added. Okay, so here's the updated list of names let go. Oh, Rowan too, holy shit. Kurt Angle, Drake Maverick, Kurt Hawkins, Carl Anderson, Luke Gallows, Heath Slater, Eric Young, Rowan. Eric Rowan is gone. Sarah Logan, gone. Mike Chioda, man, that sucks. Mike Kanellis. Mike Kanellis finally got his release. Good for him, I guess. EC3, gone. Aiden English, gone. Leo Rush, Primo, and Epico. Primo and Epico, they should have released a long time ago. I'm honestly shocked it took them this long. But they are officially gone as well. That's a shitload of people. Holy fuck. Let me check Twitter. Man, that is nuts. Oh, man, I'm looking at Twitter real quick. Ricochet. Even Ricochet said, this is sad, man. Totally agree. Mike Kanellis is gone. Bum, 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 bum. Even all the WWE people are writing about it. Like, Paige just tweeted about it. Man, this is nuts. I'm trying to see. Yeah, no, there's probably more names coming that I just haven't either gotten to or seen or whatever. A lot of people let go. Man, that really sucks. My thoughts and prayers are to everyone that was let go today, that was impacted by this, horrible, tragedy. I don't know if that tragedy is the right word, but it really sucks. It impacts a lot of people. So that's going to do it for me, guys, and stay tuned for my thoughts on the whole situation tomorrow on Wrestle Rant Radio, in addition to my exclusive interview with AEW's own Jim Ross. Great time talking to him. But, yeah, I hate to end on this note, but that's what it's come to. Real big shame. Really, really big shame. But be sure to stay tuned for more episodes of #AskGSM next week right here on the channel. Like, comment, subscribe, and you guys know all that stuff. Share the video as well. If you want to send in a question to the show, you can tweet me on the Twitter machine at WrestleRant with the hashtag AskGSM. Find me on Facebook at facebook.com/Graham.GSM.Matthews. Leave a comment on the post I usually put up on Tuesday nights, if not on the wall itself. And last but certainly not least, drop your question down below in the comment section on this very video. I'll include your question in next week's edition. So that's going to do it, guys. Stay safe out there. Wash your hands. And my thoughts and prayers and condolences for everyone out there in WWE and beyond going through this terrible time right now. That's a lot of people. This whole thing really, really sucks. This whole thing is just terrible. Not just with WWE, but just the whole coronavirus thing in general has been atrocious. So anyway, stay safe out there, guys. I'm Graham GSM Matthews, and I'll catch your ass down the road.